you've just got to move forward. The key to success, man, is showing up every day. Creating wealth is scary because you're going out to the unknown. As you start gaining confidence and as you start having successes, you start seeing transformation. So what I would encourage anybody as a listener to do is, like I said earlier, be intentional.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled Show. This is a show about people that were successful in a previous career and left that career to go down a different path. I'm your host, Richard Coyne. And on today's show, we have Brad Blazar. Brad, we're so glad you're with us. Welcome.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. So, Brad, if you would, can you tell me a little bit about your background and kind of what you have done in your former career? You've done a lot of things, but what's something you can share with us about your past?
Well, like a lot of listeners, I grew up in, I guess, what I would call a traditional middle-class home. My dad was an executive, and we relocated every couple of years and moved around as a child growing up. But, in my life, much like Robert Kiyosaki, I had a very wealthy uncle, and I kind of call him my rich uncle, where I learned a lot of life's lessons. But like many kids, I grew up in an environment where my parents fostered education. They obviously encouraged us to go off to school. And so I kind of went in that direction, largely thinking and believing that I was going to become an architect. And so I enrolled in college in architectural school. And while I was in school at the University of Texas in my fourth year, ultimately just decided to get a job. And so I got out the newspaper. This was, of course, before the internet. Started circling ads, sending resumes off to different businesses. And I got a call one day from a small oil company. And I was 21 at that time, going to school, but the CEO took a liking to me and said, we'd love to offer you a job. And I said, great. What am I going to be hired to do? And he said, well, we're going to get on the phone. We're going to teach you basically how to build relationships with affluent people. And you're going to be raising money for our drilling programs here in Texas, in Oklahoma, Louisiana. So I started doing that at a relatively young age. And what was really amazing is I was doing this between classes and after school, working maybe 12 to 15 hours a week. I was making over six figures. And I'm like, what in the world am I doing in college, studying architecture to get out and work 3 years as an apprentice, making, if I'm lucky, 50, 60,000, working 40-hour weeks. Like, why don't I just turn my back to school and do this for 40 hours a week and see what that looks like? And so unbeknownst to my parents at the time, one day I just turned my back to school and committed myself wholeheartedly to the business of really mastering how to raise capital. Went to work for a second company doing exactly the same thing for them. And unfortunately, through one of my investors that was in the oil business, we uncovered some fraud and misrepresentation. So when that was discovered, I immediately resigned. And we organized a class action lawsuit, which we prevailed in. But the investor base that I had built turned to me. Here I am, 23. And they said, Brad, what are you going to do now? And I just saw this huge door open up. And I said, well, if not now, never. And so I printed up some letterhead and some business cards and never drilled an oil well, knew nothing about really running a business, but I knew I could find people like CPAs and attorneys. And so at the age of 23, I launched an oil company. And we built it up into a multi-million-dollar business, raising millions of dollars a month from high net worth individuals all across the United States. Did that for 10 years. And then after the business environment changed because of the changing tax laws in 87 and collapsing energy prices, I just slowly realized, I've got to adapt. And so I collapsed the business, never filing for bankruptcy because we were debt free. I went back to school and, after graduating, came out looking to enter corporate America. And what I found really disillusioned me. People wanted to hire me for what I used to make in a good month. And I just said, I can't do this.
Right.
And so I said, what am I going to do with my life? I mean, I don't want to settle for $80,000, $100,000 when I was making well above that as a CEO of a business I built over 10 years. And so it's this very funny story. I was watching TV one day and Steve Harvey was on and he said to his audience, it's my belief everybody here, my audience, has unique talent. I call it you're something special. And he said, if you can find out what that talent is, the one thing you do better than anybody you've ever met does, and deliver that and package it to the world, it's a magical thing. And what I realized shortly after that was my skill was raising capital. And I realized that that's the biggest problem entrepreneurs and business owners face globally around the world. It's how do I access capital so I can build, buy, or scale my company or take my existing business to that next level.
Mm-hmm.
And so we launched Capital School, and today we're in 17 countries and just absolutely love what it is we do because we're transforming lives. We're teaching people how to use OPM, and we're taking people on that same journey and same path that I was on that allowed me, obviously, to change my life and get to a point of financial independence.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. So you kind of jumped right into what you're doing now. So you're running the Capital School in 17 countries. That's awesome. So again, it teaches people how to raise capital, that type of thing. Does it matter what industry that folks are trying to focus on to raise capital for?
Not at all. We got people in real estate. We got people in theatrical arts. We got people in the energy space. We got people in e-commerce. It really doesn't matter what industry or what space you're in. The process of attracting investors and raising capital is largely the same. Certainly, you have to be in a business or have something that makes sense logically to invest in. But no, we have people really from all walks of life in different sectors of the economy that are very successful.
Okay, excellent. So Brad, as you look back before what you're doing now, before the Capital School, et cetera, in your maybe your oil days, is there a funny story you can share? Something that came from your past?
There is. I don't know if you want to censor this particular episode, but there is.
Keep it PG.
When I was in the oil business, I was talking to this very wealthy doctor, and I knew he had a lot of money because he actually came out and visited with us, and he flew out in his private jet. So, to be able to afford a private plane, I knew he was highly accredited. But for some reason, he just would not invest. And I think the big thing in his mind, having never invested in oil, was the risk of drilling a dry hole and basically losing the entire investment, which is obviously a very realistic risk. And so, after talking to this guy a couple times, it was, probably 8:00 in the evening. I was calling him. He's out on the West Coast. So for him, it's still about 6:30. And I just, got to a point, and I was a little cocky back then, and I just said, look, Dr. Schnack, it just takes two things to invest in an oil well. And he said, well, what? And I said, just big balls and lots of money. Which of the two don't you have? 25-year-old kid, I bit my tongue because they teach you in sales, the first one that speaks after you close loses. And there was a pause. And he came back and he said, tell me again what 3 units in your program looks like. Checkbook. Welcome aboard. And, he became one of our best investors.
Right.
But, sometimes you just got to basically push people a little bit, as I like to say, kind of off that deep end diving board. And, he committed. He made some money for him, obviously. But that's one of the more humorous stories and closing lines I've used to actually get people to make a decision. Because people don't realize this. The word decide is actually the root of the word kill off. When you make a decision, you're killing off indecision. That's why we have pesticides and insecticides. But the word decide literally means to kill off.
Okay, interesting. Wow. That's a good one. Yeah, that's definitely some gutsy move on your part, but yeah, sometimes you have to just call people out on, listen, it's time to make a decision. You can't sit there and
I tell people on the front end now, after doing this for many years, just give me a yes or no. It's a lot better for me than a maybe. A maybe is indecision. If it's not for you, that's fine. We'll still be friends, still respect you, but I would rather spend my time with people that have expressed interest, that are capable of moving forward, that are not wavering in indecision. And so I tell people on the front end, it's okay to tell me if what we're doing is just not for you.
Yeah, makes sense. So Brad, is there a deciding factor that you can kind of point to that said you wanted to really, there was some stuff you did in between the oil and really kind of doing Capital School, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I built a real estate portfolio. We have a fund. Of course, aligning myself with some of the largest financial services firms in the world, largest real estate companies in the United States. Okay. So there was a career largely where I was raising hundreds of millions of dollars for real estate projects, for other investment sponsors. And largely that's where I have interest in properties like storage, multifamily, office, et cetera. And then I just got to a point where I said, why am I raising millions, making all these other people filthy rich? Like, why don't I do this for myself?
Okay. Okay.
And so I largely retired raising capital for others a few years ago. And in 2005, kind of took the plunge, started investing in single family like most people do because it was affordable. I became a subject to expert. And we built a portfolio that was valued at a couple $1 million. And then obviously, as we exited, we took advantage of the 1031s vehicle and just started cascading that money and started investing in larger and larger deals.
Excellent. Yeah, that's smart. Again, it surprises me how many people don't know about 1031 and how, it's not easy. Again, there's some hair on it and there's some handcuffs and timing that's certainly important to make sure you're on top of things. But yeah, it's a brilliant strategy. And again, it's in the tax law. So there you go. Perfect.
It's in the tax law, just like nowadays, the opportunity zones, which provide another vehicle where very different than a 1031. But if you invest in an opportunity zone, 10 years later, you can sell the asset tax-free on the back end, and you don't have to reinvest the proceeds like you do with the 1031 if you want to keep deferring that. So 10-year window, boom, all that money's mine tax-free. That's the opportunity zone route that we've looked at on some of the deals that we've also participated in. But those two strategies largely are for wealth creation. But it's amazing, like you said, a lot of people just don't know about these strategies that the affluent and the wealthy take advantage of. Knowledge is power.
No, that's right. That's right. So as you were really decided to stop raising capital for other people and drive towards your capital school, were there initially some obstacles you had to overcome?
Absolutely. The naysayers, the family members that said, are you an idiot? Like you're walking away from a mid-six-figure company, a 401k and all these benefits to coach people like you ain't no Tony Robbins. And I just laughed and I said, yeah, but there's millions of people that need what I have. And that is the skill and the knowledge on how to attract and raise capital. And so, I was doing some coaching before, more in business and the mindset. And I would ask people, what is it you want to do? Oh, I want to open a restaurant. Great. Or, I want to start a business. Great. Well, what's holding you back? And the funny thing is, very rarely was it the limiting belief or the fear. 99.9% of the time, the people just say, I just don't have the money to get started. And I would just smile and say, don't you realize every day of your life, all the money you need to do anything you want is around you? They call those people investors. And so what I realized is I had the skills that others needed. We were able to package it up, create the content, and then deliver that to the world, much like Steve Harvey said. And it's been magical. We've created a successful business. I've traveled abroad, made great friendships. We're doing an investor event tomorrow here in Houston, where we have some of our students coming in to present in front of the environment we create for them. But it was really just kind of what I saw filling a void in the marketplace, and naturally in real estate, which is a capital intensive vehicle to be in because you need money to make money in real estate, whether you're rehabbing, whether you're investing in multifamily. So I think that's one of the reasons we've been largely as successful as we've been. And then the other is just the tremendous amount of capital I've raised gives me the credibility along with the book I've written, Winning at the Capital Game.
Okay, nice. Very nice. So, Brad, what was one of the first victories as you really kind of said, we're doing this, tell me about an early victory.
Well, there have been many victories. I think really, proving to my family after I came out with my second book and, was speaking on stages alongside some major celebrities. I mean, I've shared the stage alongside people like boxing legend Floyd Mayweather, Brandon Dawson, of course, who's Grant's partner at 10X, Jesse Itzler, who's not only a very notable entrepreneur in his own right, but obviously married to Sarah Blakely, John Maxwell, Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington. I mean, I can go on and on. But when those events started taking place in my life, people started taking notice, we just saw you with Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, it's kind of cool. We just saw you on stage with John Maxwell. I've read his books. Yeah, John's a great guy. But it's really the network of people that you're able to build and create, which is obviously taken time. And now, the biggest naysayers and the biggest doubters are my biggest ranting, raving fans. But what was really cool is I'm a big risk taker, and I've always been. And last year, when I was invited to speak in Miami alongside some major players, Floyd Mayweather, Brandon Dawson, Bobby Castro, who has about 750, 800 million in multifamily, hip hop musical artist, Rich the Kid. I went to my wife and I said, it's time for me to start traveling to these events on a private jet.
Mm-hmm.
She looked at me like, who are you trying to impress? I'm not trying to impress anybody. It will activate something in me to get me to that next level. Because someday I'd like to own my own private plane. I mean, I want to be like it Ed Milet, or someone at that stature. And I said, I just want to know what it's like. And so she's like, you have any idea how much this costs? I said, I have no idea. So I started calling charter companies, found out it was $35,000 round trip from Houston to Miami. And I told my wife that. She's like, you got to realize, flying United first class is only about $1,500. But here's what I did. I committed. And I went out in social media and I was telling the world, hey, I'm going to this big event. I'm flying in a Citation G3. And then it dawned on me, this plane's got 9 seats. So I went to my social media profile and I said, who wants to join me flying on a private jet to a major event, being in the front row? And I priced each seat at $5,000. I sold out in 3 days. And I ended up essentially traveling for free.
Yeah.
But that's what scared me. It was the fear of committing to a $35,000 bill if nobody else confirmed to join me on that ride. And, we've done it now multiple times.
Yeah.
But those are monumental, what I call life-changing events, because once you do something that you committed that scares you and you overcome that, your confidence just goes through the roof. It's like when I did my big event 2 years ago, we hired Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington. His speaking fee was $17,500. I hadn't even sold the ticket. But we pulled off the event. We broke even. We had Sharon Lecter and all these other wonderful people there. But, that's kind of what has allowed me to move forward. It's the naysayers, the haters. I just use that as motivation.
Nice. Going back to Kiyosaki, the analogy of the plane is that you bought the pie and sold the pieces.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Nice.
And what I've learned is, you have to basically understand that if you purchase assets, which obviously, include that if financing, you need to use your assets basically to generate revenue and figure out how you can use that in your business. And so, my good friend, Coach Michael Burt's got a beautiful lodge in Murfreesboro, Tennessee on 20 acres, but he hosts his events at his lodge.
Nice.
And so, things of that, obviously there's a huge expense and I'm sure he's got debt on that property, but it's paying for itself.
Right. Very nice. Very nice. So Brad, where are you today in your journey? Where do you see the future?
Really what we're looking at is doing global events. Really what we want to start doing is putting me out on the road more. Last year I was invited to speak in Dubai. But we really, because of the audience now, want to do a quote Capital School event in Sydney, do a Capital School event in London, do another one in Ontario. And so that's really the direction that we're taking and moving forward to in 2023 and beyond. And then the other really is impacting the lives of other people and looking at how me and our team can do things to really simplify the capital raising process for others. I think the big game changer between what we do and some of the other experts that are out there is we organize the investor events and then we bring people from our student body that are ready to those and say, look, we're going to announce you to the group of investors that we've assembled. You're going to get 20 minutes to pitch your deal. You're going to have a table with all your product literature, and you're going to get a list of all the people that have shown up. If you can't raise a couple $1 million off the back end of that, it tells me one of two things. Either you're a terrible salesperson or I just know you didn't do the work.
Right.
Plain and simple. But, we're solving for the biggest problems people have because people will get the knowledge as to what to say. They'll get a great pitch deck, but then they kind of get stuck in this quicksand. Like, I don't know how to attract investors or how to put a deal together. And I went to my team and said, let's put the deals together for them. Let's do the events for them.
Right. Okay. Nice. Very nice. Yeah. So Brad, I want to touch base on just sort of, things you do. I know that you have some philanthropic, ideas that you do and things like that. And I want to ask, are there things you do in your business and perhaps, personally or through your business that you do to give, give back? And also if I can, I read something recently about you that recently you were knighted. If you want to maybe mention that briefly.
Sure. Yeah. Basically, if you read my books, it says on the inside cover, I'm very passionate about cancer research. I lost my father to cancer many years ago, lung cancer. And I think that's just one of the major illnesses in the world that we really need to research and hopefully find cures for. Personally, I've had some skin cancer and doing just fine now, but it's kind of a scary thing when the doctor's looking at your moles and he said, that's a melanoma. You've been out in the sun too much. But we basically, through our coaching revenue, through our book sales, donate a portion of that back to MD Anderson Cancer Research. But yeah, I was actually contacted last year based on what they call honors of merit. And there's 8 honors of merit, philanthropy, excelling, for example, in the arts. You're a great musician or you're a great actor. You're great in sports. We have a lot of tremendous athletes that are also knighted, like Rolando Blackman, who was the #1 point scorer for the Dallas Mavs. But I was contacted by a friend of mine that spoke at my event, and I didn't know that he was a knight at the time. And he was so impressed that after chatting with me for about 20 minutes, he said, I got a personal question I want to ask you. Have you ever thought about being knighted? And here I am thinking like, Richard Branson, right? Elton John. And he's like, yeah, royal knighting. It's a true royal knighting. It's not one of these fictitious Knights of Columbus or Masonic Lodge. It's the real deal. Your name is recorded in the European courts as a knight. I'm like, sure. And so, it's a process that I went through, but ultimately, the prince traveled from Seville, Spain, which is where he resides. And we had a royal knighting investiture here in the States, in Las Vegas, with the U.S. Marine Corps Color Guard present and the Scottish Royal Bagpipers present, paparazzi, and they're alongside 11 others. There were 12 of us. Basically got down on the knee and was bopped on the head with a sword and stood up and was given the royal title, Sir Brad Blazar. And I use that today largely to foster philanthropic efforts, as well as, of course, the other knights that are part of this royal family as well. But it really is to use that title. And I always say, live your life with knightly virtues. What were knights there for? It's basically to protect the poor, kind of like Robin Hood. And so, if you live your life by knightly virtues, and there is, believe it or not, a knight's code that they read to you, kind of like putting your hand on the Bible. Do you subscribe to the knight's code? Yes, I do. But that was definitely a highlight in my career. My wife and my daughter went, and for my daughter to see her father on stage, but also to be in that environment and see the level of people that I was basically being inducted alongside, just really kind of opened her eyes as an 11-year-old as to what's out there. And we're trying to basically teach her that you've got to open your mind to opportunities, you've got to connect with other people, and there's a lot more than they just teach you in school, because unfortunately in school they don't teach you a lot of these, what I call secrets of success. You learn those once you start going to masterminds, events, and connecting with other people that are where you ultimately want to be.
Very nice. Very nice. And again, you were recognized for your philanthropic efforts. That's incredible. So well done.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Very, very, very cool. So Brad, is there something you've done recently that you can mention that has helped you, your business grow and scale?
Yeah, it's always about kind of getting to that next level. And it's always challenging, because I think as a business owner, you get to certain levels and you kind of plateau. You may stay at that level for a year or two, and it's kind of like, well, how do I go from here to here? And I think some of the things that we've done is really step back and basically surveyed our community. We sent out an email to a couple thousand people and said, really, what are you struggling with? Like, what do you really need help with? And the feedback that we got back was just monumental. And so, we've niched down in a few areas. We've offered additional services. And what we're finding is, by really offering an a la carte, everything you need from A to Z. You need to launch a fund? Great. We got 2 securities attorneys. We provide a turnkey solution. We'll draft your PPM. We'll create your pitch deck. We'll do all that heavy lifting for you at a cost that is dramatically reduced from what you could get it for out in the market. Why? Because the volume of work we do keeps these 2 attorneys busy, and they're not charging $30,000 to $40,000 for a PPM. So that's one element. I think the other is really also just delegating and realizing that in order to create a business, you have to step away from the business and let others handle the day-to-day. As I like to say, I work on the business. I don't work on the business. And so it opens up my mind to be more of the strategic thinker. And that's really tough for a lot of people to do, even myself, that want to be hands-on, because it's the mindset when you're an A-driven person, I can do this better than anybody else.
Sure.
But you realize that if they can do it at a level that's 80% perhaps of what you can do, I'd much rather have 5 or 10 people doing that so I can remove myself and then start focusing on the much more strategic stuff.
Very nice. Very nice. Brad, what advice would you share with somebody who's considering making a path change?
Really, I think the biggest advice is you've just got to move forward. I call it showing up every day. The key to success, man, is showing up every day. It's not hard, but I've got a good friend that's one of the top coaches, Coach Michael Burt. I don't know if you follow him or not, but he talks about this thing that is within everybody. He calls it your prey drive. And he heard this term from the Marines, and he's like, prey drive, like, what is that? Well, prey drive, obviously the big cats like the tigers and the lions or the dogs, is for them, it's not necessarily catching the prey that excites them, it's the pursuit. Okay. And so he said, in humans, there is a prey drive. It's the ability to see something in your mind like a goal or a desire, and then have the persistence and the tenacity to continue pursuing that until its attainment. But he said, unfortunately, for a lot of people, that prey drive is dormant or it's inactive. So how do you flip the switch? And you can do that through a number of mediums that he talks about as a coach. But I believe that with a lot of people, what we tend to do is back away and retreat and go to a place of safety and comfort. And even if the life we lead is not satisfying, and even if we're not happy with it, we go there. Why? Because it's the safe place.
Right.
Getting to where you want to be financially, creating wealth is scary because you're going out to the unknown. But as you journey out there and as you start gaining confidence and as you start having successes, you start seeing transformation. And so what I would encourage anybody as a listener to do is, like I said earlier, be intentional. Write your goals down. Be so committed and focused to them that you're not going to listen to the noise. You're not going to buy into the naysayers. Just care about you. Right. And the second thing I would also advise people to do is quit comparing yourself to other people. When I started this journey, I would look around at all these people. Oh, they're buying the Lambos, the Rolexes, the big houses. And I took my mind off of that and I started reinvesting back into the business because I had a much longer long-term vision and a long-term goal. But quit comparing yourself to other people. If you just compare yourself to yourself every single day and you look for the transformation in your life to continually improve and get better, you'll get to where you ultimately want to be. One of the most amazing actors I've ever seen that was the recipient of the Academy Award in 2014, Matt McConaughey, said, look, there are 3 people I'm chasing. He said, number one, I want to thank God because God has fostered me with the abilities as an actor to do amazing things. I want to thank my wife and, of course, my family. They're the love of my life, and I do what I do because of them. But there is somebody I'm chasing. And he paused. And, of course, the camera's panning the audience like, who's he chasing? Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise? He said, I'm chasing the version of myself 5 years from today. He said, I constantly want to improve myself as an actor. When I get to where I want to be in 5 years, I'm chasing myself 5 years forward. Right. And it was such an enlightening thing for him to get up there and say that the person he's pursuing and chasing is himself through that positive transformation. So that's what I would encourage people to do is just compare yourself to yourself today and constantly be working on improving in any area of your life, fitness, health, knowledge.
Yeah. That's awesome. I really like that analogy and that concept. So very cool. Very cool. Yeah. So Brad, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you?
The best way is just to follow me on social media. If you Google Brad Blazar and the last name is B-L-A-Z like zebra A-R, I'll pop up on the first 4 pages of Google for you. But on Instagram, it's just Brad Blazar. Go to my website, www.bradblazar.com, or contact information's there. You can reach out through the contact page or call the toll-free number, Facebook, LinkedIn, real accessible. And what you'll find, more importantly, is we're real responsive. My assistant or myself will typically get back to you the same day, or if not the same day, within 24 hours. But really, our message is let's get on a call with you. Let's see how we can help you.
Yeah.
We don't want to high pressure people. We don't want to put you into a coaching or mentoring program that logically does not make sense. But let's see how we can largely add value to what you're doing into your life. I've got 3 books. You can find them all on Amazon. One is more mindset. One is more focused on attracting and raising capital. The other, Put Some Thrive in Your Hive, is for the business manager or owner that really is struggling, that just wants to create a positive culture and a positive environment in their business so that their business can thrive and be more successful. But just reach out to us, and you can find me all over social media.
Excellent. Well, good. Yeah. Well, Brad, we really want to thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled show today. So thanks for being on.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for hosting me. It's been a great interview. I can tell already. I think your listeners are going to get a lot of value out of it.
I hope so, and I'm sure they will. So absolutely. So we'd also like to thank our listeners. Please continue to give us a 5-star rating so we can bring you more great content like our show today with Brad Blazar. We'd also like to remind everybody of a couple of important things that Park Capital Partners has going on. First, we have the Park Capital Partners Value Add Fund, which is a 506c fund that's open today to accredited investors. Next, we have the Park Capital Partners Foundation, that is a 501c3 nonprofit. And the way that works quickly is that first, we believe so strongly in giving back that Park Capital Partners funds the operations of the foundation so that all the money donated to that foundation goes to do its best work, which is to help others. Second, we donate personally. Third, corporately. And then finally, when investors invest with us in one of our projects, we make a donation to honor that investor to a pre-selected list of 15 different charities, including the American Cancer Society, as a way to help investors feel good about not only earning returns, but also doing something to help others. So please reach out to both Bill and myself, parkcapitalpartnersllc.com. And again, thank you again for Brad for being on. And remember, folks, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.